most of the time people are spending all of their net worth on these businesses. So you want to get someone who knows what they're doing so that you can get the best advice. So you're not going to be in a situation where you go to sell and the buyer's lawyer says to you, well, these agreements are void.
Yeah. You spent most of your legal career working in the industry. Give us a brief overview, Matthew, if you don't mind, on how you see the management rights industry and the accommodation sector at the moment.
Yeah, the way I see the accommodation sector at the moment is probably not too different to what you read in the papers. There's a housing shortage, there's a rental shortage, there are all these issues. What inevitably happens is people have got to build more to fit more people in, particularly in the cities where all the work is. And what does that mean? They're going to have to go up. There's going to have to be more community title schemes. I also see that the legislation it's an excellent piece of legislation. It protects all stakeholders. In my view, it's the best model, so to speak, that we've got.
Yeah, great. So it's a very resilient, very healthy industry, right? In your term, in your view, and your take on things, there wouldn't be too many industries or businesses out there so resilient.
I would agree. Again, because I think it's the best model.
Yeah.
I really do. We need community title schemes for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. In my role as a sales broker, we talk a lot about using industry experts, the people that understand the industry. There's conversations, speak to your lawyer, get advice from your lawyer. It's a lawyer question. How important is it to use an industry expert, and are all lawyers the same?
It's really important to use an industry expert. Like anything, we're all heading down the road of specialisation. So just because you're a lawyer doesn't mean, just because I'm a property lawyer doesn't mean I can do litigation and vice versa. Same as anything else. Management rights, it's its own speciality and requires training and practice and knowledge. There are a lot of small technical issues in management rights, just like any other speciality. And you don't know what you don't know. So if you miss something unwittingly, it can have huge ramifications, meaning your agreements might be void or something similar or as catastrophic as that.
Yeah. When should a lawyer be engaged, and what are some of the things a lawyer should be engaged for?
Look, if I was buying management rights, I would engage a lawyer as soon as I signed an offer and acceptance to purchase. That being said, if I had some specific questions about a business or something I didn't quite understand before that time, I would ask a lawyer or seek one out and ask their advice.
Yeah, and we touched on it earlier. The benefits of using an industry expert can have big financial, but also stress implications down the line. How important is it, would you say, for engaging the right person, having that connection with your industry expert? And why is it that someone should be considering the options with legal?
It's like anything. Why would you engage someone who didn't have experience in an area to advise you on a particular area? It just doesn't make sense. Most of the time people are spending all of their net worth on these businesses. So you want to get someone who knows what they're doing so that you can get the best advice. So you're not going to be in a situation where you go to sell and the buyer's lawyer says to you, well, these agreements are void.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You've got no business. So for me, that's, if I was a buyer, I'd be seeking the best person I could possibly find. And I would pay the fee, whatever that is.
There are topics specific to the management rights industry that I think we should probably elaborate on. You've got the assignment process, you've got the top up process, you've got the dispute process. How important is it to plan for these things and be on top of these things for when they need to occur?
I think it's very important. I think it's important to plan on these things when you're coming in. How you're going to run the business, the relationships you're going to have with the stakeholders in there. It's all going to play into one, not having disputes, so avoiding that entirely, and also getting top-ups as well. The better relationships you have with owners, with committee members, the more likely you are to get a top-up through. And of course, that's going to help you while you're in there. It's going to help when you sell as well.
Great. Let's elaborate on that. So when you're looking to sell, what are some of the things that you would be advising your clients on preparing for sale?
So if someone comes to me and says, look, we're looking to sell the business, Matthew, what do we need to put in place? The first three things I'll say to them is, how are your letting appointments? Are they all signed for all lots in the letting pool? Are they up to date? Are the fees that are written into them, are they consistent with what you're charging owners? That's the first thing. Second thing is, what's your term left on your agreement? Is that saleable, etc., etc., etc. Once all that, they've got all those ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Then it's about going to your accountant and getting figures done for sale and things like that.
Yeah. You've touched on a few things, and you'd be surprised in my role how many people don't understand how many years they've got left on their term, and basics that people should, their bread and butter, they're not across. Let's go into the legal DD sides of things. From a buyer's perspective, what are some of the things that you would uncover in the DD process, and how valuable is it that you do your job to help them make the right and determine the right outcome for that purchase?
So some of the things that we find in legal due diligence when we go through that process are, disputes with the manager on, huge issues between manager and committee. That can be found. We find that agreements are invalid, can be invalid. We find that variations or top-ups haven't been done properly and are therefore void. They're the main big issues. They're the big ticket things that we look for. The validity of the agreements, validity of the top-ups, and whether there's disputes. There's a whole lot of other technical things in there as well. Who provides the equipment, the materials, what the duties are, what the salary is, all of those types of things as well. What do the termination provisions look like, the assignment provisions, all of those types of things, whether there's particular bylaws that support the management rights business as well. So we look at all of that, but there are those big ticket items that, if you miss those, there are big problems for everyone involved.
And you spoke about earlier, engaging a lawyer the moment you sign a contract and getting the right advice early. What's typically, in current timeframes, the term of due diligence from start to finish? How long are we seeing that blow out to at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, look, it's taking, I'd like to say 21 days. I'm pretty much getting it to 21 days at the moment. The biggest thing we have to wait for is that body corporate role search. And that's our search agent getting in there, going through the body corporate records, photocopying everything off and giving us that big report that's got all the minutes of the meetings, etc. So that can take a few weeks. We bolt that into then our review and it's out. So, you're looking at around 21 days.
Okay, that's great. From our point of view as a sales broker in the field, in the coalface, we're hearing a lot and we're seeing a lot more talk about decoupling. Briefly explain what decoupling is.
So decoupling is the separating of the manager's unit from the business. And if it's decoupled, what you can then do is sell the business separately to selling the unit. There's quite a bit in that. You've got to, more often than not, change the bylaws. You've also got to change some of the terms in the caretaking letting agreements as well. And both of those things need to be passed at the general meeting of the body corporate. So that means all lot owners get the chance to vote on it. Where it does get difficult is where there's an expectation either within the body corporate or the general community of the body corporate itself and the committee about having an on-site manager. Particularly if they've had an on-site manager for many years, they may think, well, look, we don't want you to live off-site. We want someone on-site. That's what we pay for. That's always been the case, and we want to continue that way. And in those kinds of situations, it can be very difficult to decouple.
Matthew, give us 3 expert tips for a buyer looking to enter the industry for the first time.
If looking to go into the industry, the first thing I would think about is what kind of business that you want to run. Is it short-term? Is it permanent? Is it just a caretaking only with no unit? because they're all very different businesses, and you've got to find the one that works best for your own skill set. You don't just go into a short-time holiday building and go, well, I'm going to make more money there, but what is your skill set and what's going to suit it? That's the first thing. Second question, are you going to be running it, or is someone else going to be running it? What is the answer to that question? Thirdly, how long are you going to be in there for? Are you going to be in there on a short-term holiday building and just go 24/7 for 3 or 4 years and then go, okay, I'm having a break now? Or is it something, a permanent that you're going to go into and I'm happy to settle in here for 10 years,
I think from a sales broker perspective, I typically have the conversation with every buyer at the start. Think about your exit strategy before you start, before your entry. Work out where you want to be in that period of time, what it looks like, and then work backwards from that point. Give us 3 tips now from an industry expert on the seller and on the way out. What can they do and what can they seek from you as good, helpful advice?
First thing is to get the right buyer. That's my thoughts. If you get the right buyer, it means that the assignment process goes smoothly, or certainly more smoothly than it could. And what I mean by the right buyer, I'd want to be saying to them, well, what experience have you got? Is it transferable? Have you run these businesses before? Et cetera, et cetera. Because I do think if you get the right buyer, it's going to be better for the building, and the assignment process is going to go more smoothly and more quickly, and there's going to be a whole lot less angst when it comes time for the sale. So that'd be my first tip to a seller. The other thing is to expect that it's going to take 4 to 6 months to go from start to finish. A lot of buyers and sellers think that will be done in 2 months and there shouldn't be too many issues. How hard can it be? People say to me often, but to expect that time frame. Yeah. The other thing would be to work in conjunction with both the broker and your lawyer. To get the references and resumes and business plan, et cetera, et cetera.
Start that early.
Get it done early. Yeah. Make sure your buyer has got their license as well.
Right. Matthew, some very valuable industry insight today. Thank you very much for your time. It's really much appreciated.
A pleasure.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Sid.